that the reason they were toppling is because they had never had to face resistance. That the wind is actually necessary for the health of a tree, because it's against the blowing of the wind that the roots have to dig in.
That's good.
Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started. Well, welcome to Season 2 Hope in Real Life podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. We are here this week with pastor, speaker, author, former NFL player, college All-American, and as we heard in a previous episode this season, botanical garden walker, Leonce Crump Jr. Leonce, how you doing this morning?
You're never going to let that go, are you? Never going to let it go.
Not going to let it go. We are here this week to talk about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. I know it's near and dear to your heart. It's two men who really want to see the world become a better place. We want to see lives change. We want to see people experience the life that we believe that God's created them to experience, regardless of what our listeners believe, how that fits in. That's what we're after. And it's the topic is this: how to be resilient in a chaotic world.
My.
Yeah. And so Leonce is here with us this week. He's actually written a book called The Resilience Factor. And so, man, I just would love to start right out of the gate. What does resilience mean to you?
Yeah, resilience to me, to quote the great Mike Tyson.
That's right. I know right where this is going.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I think there's something incredibly poignant in that statement. He probably didn't know that as he was saying it, but
no, he's a theologian.
He is a theologian and a philosopher.
And a philosopher, that's right.
But there is something to that idea that we all think we have the way to go until we hit rough terrain, until we hit difficulty. And so the way I would define resilience is the ability to keep going against obstacle, against trial, against tragedy, against difficulty, to keep moving forward. Or another way to say that is the capacity to get up and keep moving after you've been knocked down.
That's right. And I would even, no, I didn't write the book, but I would even add on that, like the ability to come back stronger.
That's exactly
than the time
right.
Before. So it's not, hey, we're not enduring. There's a difference in enduring something versus being resilient through something, because when something happens, when you've gone through some difficult times and then you come out on the other side strong, you're like, wait a minute, I'm a better man.
Yeah.
I'm a better woman. I know how to handle this. It's interesting that you started out by saying that, though. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, or you said in the face.
Yeah.
But punched in the mouth, punched in the face. Is it me? I mean, it seems like the world right now is throwing punches at us.
Well, the world has always been throwing punches.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the difference is the frequency with which they come, the ability of Joe from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, to get on Twitter and yell at a celebrity or or a public official. The access that we have to information, it has just increased the ability for individual actors and groups of people to create chaos in all types of ways, which requires us to be more resilient. And I love the way you rounded that out. It is the ability to come back stronger, and we did cover that in the book, by the way. But it's the ability to get hit, to get up, and you have taken the collective learning from that, and it is actually...
We're good. We had a little lighting change in the studio, but everything's all
good. It got bright.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
I thought Jesus was coming back. I was like, I'm ready,
trumpet,
Lord.
No trumpet, though.
I'm ready.
Trumpet.
I heard it inside.
Okay.
You didn't hear it?
I didn't hear the trumpet. I'm in trouble.
Oh, that's in trouble.
I need some resilience.
We got to call Nick Cage.
Oh, my goodness.
Where y'all want to pick it up from?
That's it. No, I think we're good. We just keep rolling.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Listen, I don't know what kind of situation this is.
Yeah, we're good to go.
I'm usually on,
we're going to be resilient.
I'm usually on NPR type nonsense.
You're not the NPR
today
type.
On this episode of Hope in Real Life. No, but that ability to get up and to have taken the collective learnings from that loss, right? Nelson Mandela said this. He said, I've never lost. I've only won or learned, right? That to me, again, is a part of the essence of actually having resilience. And I think resilience can be cultivated.
Yeah.
It's not something you're born with. It's not something that is reserved for special human beings or former Navy SEALs or all-American wrestlers. It's something that can be cultivated over time with intentionality.
Right. That should be comforting, I think, to the listening world at the moment. You're going through a difficult time. Like, this is something that can be developed. You've got to want to develop it.
That's right.
You got to be willing to go through the fire, but it is something that can be developed. I think it's important for our audience to kind of connect with you a little bit on this, and not because I know a bit about your life. Right? We know each other. For those of you, maybe you've heard this story, but there was a couple months ago you were in town, 2-3 months ago you were in town, and we spent some time in an office. We just said, if we're going to be working together more, if we're going to be spending more time together, we should just get to know each other more and talk about our stories. I think it was maybe 30 minutes before both of us were probably in tears talking about things we'd gone through.
30 minutes?
Okay.
30 minutes?
3 minutes.
You were crying in 7 minutes. It was beautiful.
Oh, my gosh.
It was beautiful.
Okay. Well, we've got a clip of you that
I
we're
think
going to
you were
play
wearing-
now going through flower gardens. So we're going to play that. And we're gonna...
It was incredible.
But let's do this, because I know you could pick one. You got a laundry list. But just talk about a time where you experienced a difficult time in your life and you had to work through that, and maybe just share a bit of that with our listeners.
Yeah. I can say this quite candidly. 2019 to 2022 were the hardest years of my adult life. And I questioned everything. I questioned my calling. I questioned whether I was supposed to stay in ministry. I questioned what I had done with my life for the previous 10 years and if I was in the right place doing the right thing. And it was because there was a series of incredible challenges and difficulties and traumas. In 2019, a couple of my elders and one of my associate pastors decided to try and basically upend my leadership and the leadership of some of the other elders and pastors. And it caused terrible trauma in our church. I wouldn't call it a church split, but definitely a church splinter. There were a bunch of people that scattered just because they were hurt. They weren't even mad at a particular side. They're just like, I don't want to be a part of the drama. And so we navigated that in 2019, rolled right into the pandemic in 2020. And leading a church you can't see is incredibly challenging. And because we were in the city of Atlanta, I don't know if you guys followed this on the news, but our governor and our mayor were fighting every day. Right. The governor was like, go back to church and do your thing. And the mayor was like, if I catch more than 5 people in that building, I'm going to shut you down forever. Right. And so we were caught in this limbo where we didn't gather for 14 months.
Wow.
14 months. So I didn't even know if we would have a church, on the other side of that. And then in the midst of that, my younger brother was fighting cancer. And all through 2019, while I was on this legitimate battlefront in our church, my brother's fighting cancer, and I couldn't be there for him the way that I wanted to be when I look back in hindsight, because, I couldn't know then that he was going to end his fight with cancer, a few years later, which was in September of 2021. And so these last few years have been one hit after another. And I can say this without any reservation or compunction. If I hadn't had a life, some of the things we shared when we were together, of having to find a way to regroup and recalibrate on the other side of tragedy and move forward stronger than I was, if I hadn't taken the time to cultivate that through academics, through sports, through family drama, which we don't even have time, I think that's where the tears started.
That's right.
If I didn't have those faculties, I don't know that I would still be standing. And again, we're Christians. I do believe that the Spirit of God in me has been kind of that X factor, right? But just from the sheer standpoint of emotional, mental, and physical wellness, if I didn't have those other things to kind of build this resilience into me over time, man, there's no way that I not only survive but thrive on the other side of that. And that's the word. It's not, and endurance is survival. Right. We don't want to survive. Resilience is thriving on the other side of it, and integrating the pain into the person that you're becoming. And I feel like that's a lot of what 2023 has been, is a period of integration. And those are the cycles we go through. We go through pain, we go through trauma. We either repress it or we integrate it, or we expel it and take it out on other people. And I feel like this year has been the integration process of, how am I doing not being able to call my brother every day? How am I doing knowing that the men who did what they did have, started a new church and continue to try and spread rumors? How am I doing recovering from 14 months of not being able to gather with our church and wondering if we're going to make it after we had just bought our largest building ever? Right. By the way, 2 months before the shutdown, we bought 12.5 acres and 100,000 square feet. Talk
about asking some questions, man. That's tough.
Yeah. So that's it, man. That's
And for people that don't know, I mean, you don't, despite what some people might think, you don't start a church or step into the role of pastor for fame or for fortune for other people. That's not for the sake of being lifted up. That's not why you do it.
There are better things to do.
There's a lot better things, and we can have a whole podcast on that. But you do that because you actually care about the mission. Mm-hmm. You care about it. And so when you give your heart and your soul to something, and then the thought of there might be another man or a group of men or some other people that are trying to strip that thing away from you, and then there's outside circumstances that then play in, man, the questions and the resilience that it takes to be able to push through that. And as a guy who knows you, I applaud you for the focus that took, because I know that could have been easy to just take a step back and say, man, there are easier things that I can give my time to and give my energy to, and quite honestly would hurt a lot less.
Well, and there were things on the table.
Yeah.
I had multiple job offers through 2019 and multiple opportunities to just bail. But when I looked at kind of the cultural ethos of bailing out when it gets hard, I didn't want to replicate that pattern. And honestly, in a lot of ways, there are things in me that just wouldn't allow it.
Right.
Even though the thoughts circulated through my mind.
We are going to take a brief break from our show to let you know about a resource that we are making available to you. If you're looking for a resource on personal development or spiritual enrichment, then you've got to check this out. It's a free tool. Now, free to our listeners.
Free is good.
It was not free for us to create, but free for our listeners, made specifically for anyone who's looking for a bit more hope in their everyday life. Listen to the features: daily devotions, parenting tips, financial resources, marriage insights. There's even a community where you can share prayer requests if you've got things going on in your life, and you can see and know that other people are praying for you. This is going to be available in early January. We'll make sure everybody knows. Stay tuned. Keep looking for it. We'll have it out. But listen, tomorrow can be better than today, and hope is possible, even in real life. Let's get back to the show. Yeah. And we might come back to that little thing that we get in our head sometimes that won't let us do that. But I want to do this because some folks might be listening, and we talked about this before the show, but I kind of have I'd be lying if I didn't say I had an agenda. I didn't have an agenda with this topic.
Passionate agenda.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because I do believe the world, like you said, it's always been throwing punches, but it seems like right now they're just coming faster and faster and faster and harder and harder and harder. And I want to be careful how I say this, but maybe it's circumstantial. Maybe COVID had a big impact on this, but it doesn't seem like the majority of the population is as good at taking those shots and wanting to come back stronger. And so, but I desperately believe that the world, that there is more hope out there than what we realize right now.
Yeah.
And so I think we've probably got some listeners, even if they're not going through something right now, maybe they've got kids, maybe they've got young kids. And we don't always get to choose the battles, right? Sometimes the battles choose us. And that develops resilience if we push through it the right way. But what are some things that parents can take? And I'm actually going somewhere with this, so if we don't land the plane in the right spot, maybe I'll come back to it. But what are some things some parents can do? What are some environments some parents can create for their kids that would actually help them develop resilience in their lives?
Yeah, no, I know exactly where you're going, and I think that is a great direction to go. The only thing I would say before I jump into that is, to anyone who's listening, life only comes in 3 stages. You're either entering a trial, in the middle of a trial, or exiting the
That's
trial.
right. That's exactly right.
So if you're not going through something right now, you will be.
Buckle up.
You know, you will be. It's coming. And putting your head in the sand and hoping that it passes is not the way to do it. And so I think teaching our children that at an early age comes with intentionality. A couple of things that I've done personally is create environments of challenge for them and environments of difficulty. You know, we're kind of in a moment right now with our son. He told me he wanted to wrestle. You and I both know that there is no glitz, no glamour.
That's right.
No money.
Right. No money.
No money. Maybe a college education.
That's right. Maybe you get your college paid for.
And so,
but there's easier ways to get your college paid for.
There you go. It is a hard sport. And he did it 1 year. He said he kind of liked it, but he didn't know. He came back this year. Well, it turns out he's been, quietly telling my wife that he doesn't want to wrestle. He's just been doing it because Dad did it. And I had a moment where I had to decide if I was going to let him pull the ripcord or make him finish out the season, right? Even though he doesn't want to do it. He hates it. And now he hadn't told me this,
right,
but I can see it on him. He hates it. And I don't blame him. Right. If I wasn't if I wasn't certifiable, right, I would probably hate it too.
Right.
But he's going to finish the season.
Yeah.
We don't let our kids quit things in the middle. So that's one way to build resilience. Yeah. We don't let them quit in the middle. You can quit at the end, or you can not start.
Right.
But you're not going to bail in the
That's
middle.
That's
good. And it hasn't always been received well. Anybody who's tried to raise teenage girls.
That's me.
Oh, Jesus, help, Jesus. But
she's great. I know she listens. I love you. I love you.
He loves you.
I do love you. You and Mom are special together, though. I tell you that.
And my girls, you probably won't listen, but if you ever do, I love you too. And you're also the source of all of the white hair in my chin. But we had to make our oldest. She tried to quit in the middle of the track season last year. Yeah. We're like, no, you're going to finish. Now, if you don't want to run track after this, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you're not going to quit on yourself, and you're not going to quit on your team in the middle. That's one way that we build resilience. Yeah. We don't just give our kids things, right? They have to earn things. Every year, Christmas time, however many new toys you think you want, that's how many old toys are going away. And we're in that. We're not only teaching them about loss and processing, letting go, but we're also teaching them generosity,
right, because
they're taking those lightly used toys and they're giving them to kids who may or may not have a Christmas at all. But those are a few of the things. Man, keep going down the line. I made my kids start cleaning up after themselves when they were 5. Yeah. Even though I knew they would do a terrible job.
Right.
I'm like,
you still have to clean up after them cleaning up after
That's
themselves.
exactly right. But the lesson is if you make a mess, you clean it.
Yeah.
So get down and get this rice off the floor.
Yeah.
All of that, even though they don't understand it, it's me Miyagiing them into, resilience.
Right.
If you don't understand that reference, Karate Kid, wax on, wax off, he was mad. You're never going to teach me karate. Damn, son, wax on. And
Beautiful
then he knew he had
scene.
karate. Oh, it was beautiful. Sand the floor. It was so great. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, I know karate. I'm like, yeah, dummy, I've been teaching you the whole time. Right? So a lot of this is me Miyagiing them into what I hope, will become a resilience. Now, parenting is a stewardship, right? Yeah. Like we're just stewarding what ultimately belongs to God. And so I'm trying to be the best steward I can. And all I can do is hope that the results are what we're putting in.
Yeah, I can say, and it's, I'm not the guest on this episode, so we're not going to get into this, but I went through some challenging times in leadership roles in between 2020, 2022 in that way. Yeah. So, but I can honestly say, man, the wrestling for me was one of the things going through life. Now, I didn't realize it, that I'd actually gone through some challenging times and some trauma that probably is what led to me being able to thrive in the wrestling environment. You mentioned being certifiable. I probably fit in that category, but I wasn't old enough to realize it at that point.
Yeah.
But man, if it weren't for those lessons, if it weren't for understanding, hey, it's not about the glory in the moment. It's about, hey, you're not where you want to be, so you got to put in the work. You got to keep grinding. You got to keep pushing through. You got to find a way. They got me to that place. We said with our kids, and by the way, this is not a prescription, okay? This is not a prescription. This is descriptive of what we did. So I'm not telling you this is what every parent should do.
And I hope you would follow the path. Go ahead.
We told our kids that you can play any sport that you want at any season, except for the winter. You must wrestle until you get to high school.
Yeah.
And so we told our kids you have to, and that's just because of the lessons that you learn. There's no other sport where you have to go out and it's just you and another person. There's nowhere to hide. There's
That's
no one
right.
else to blame. And if you don't want to win, you don't have to win. Okay, but you do have to learn what it's like to go out knowing, because in life you're going to get in situations that are going to come after you whether you want them to or not.
That's exactly right.
And so you might not want to go after that person, but I don't want to go after every challenge that faces me in my life. And so we just said, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make it fun.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to experience some rewards. We're going to travel to get a little bit as a family. We're going to go around some time. We're going to enjoy it. Now, to that, we don't make them wrestle year round. We make them cut weight, though. You know, my oldest two, you know, they've got had seasons where they had goals they wanted to set and they wanted to cut weight. And my daughter probably loves wrestling more than anybody else in the family. So my oldest two are twins. They're freshmen in high school this year, and so they still love the sport. They're going to be wrestling, and my youngest still loves it. So for us, it's worked out really well.
Yeah.
I believe I've seen a tremendous amount of determination and grit through them, both in school and whether they're, you know, maybe when my daughter is arguing back with my wife, same thing. So you see grit and determination. So I think sports. I think you can learn a tremendous amount.
You do.
Through sports. Get a good coach if you have the right coach.
Yeah.
And you allow your kids to participate and follow that coach wherever they will take them if they'll invest in them the right way and call them into bigger things.
Well, and that's what makes wrestling special and why I wanted to put him into it, because you're right. You know, when you play football, which I did that too, I can blame the offensive coordinator. I can blame the play calling that day. You know, the line wasn't blocking, Colorado. Yeah. You know, there's a bunch of different threads you can pull.
Yeah.
But when it's just you, person to person, it's just you. And that really is what's so much. And again, this is descriptive. Me and Jason are not telling everyone to put their kids in wrestling.
People
But
are like, is this a podcast on wrestling or resilience?
tricked you.
Yeah.
But what I will say resolutely is, if not wrestling, something that you believe will teach them grit,
Yep.
will give them the capacity to grow against challenge, and prepare them for their future. You know, I heard this interesting study. I have all kind of weird facts, you know, Chick-fil-A.
That's right.
And the ice cream chicken. But they grew these trees in a dome. Okay. You can look this up. They grew these trees in a dome.
Who's they?
This group of scientists.
Okay.
I can't
Not
remember
Chick-fil-A, though.
Not Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
No. Although they might have, you know, they're trying to take over the world. But the long story short is, the trees would get to a certain size and height, like a mature tree, and it would just fall down. And they couldn't explain it. They're like, well, why do these trees keep falling down once they pop up? We're giving them enough sun. We're giving them enough light. We're giving them enough water. They have all the ingredients they need that they should grow up and flourish. Well, it turns out that the reason they were toppling is because they had never had to face resistance. That the wind is actually necessary for the health of a tree, because it's against the blowing of the wind that the roots have to dig in.
That's good.
To not blow over.
Yeah.
And when they didn't have the trial of the wind, when they didn't have the force of the wind blowing against them, they still sprouted up as you would think they would.
Yeah.
But as soon as they got big enough, they just fell over.
Yeah.
Right. And I see so much semblance in that, in not only ourselves, but our children and our culture. You know, we are growing trees in a dome and then wondering why they're falling over.
That's good.
You know,
That's good. I say it regularly in leadership, let me serve along somebody. Let me work alongside of somebody that's got a little bit of a limp.
Yeah.
I want to be alongside. If I'm in the trenches, I wanted to be with somebody that's gone through some stuff.
Yeah.
That
Who
makes
had to put their roots down.
That's right.
You know, so that they didn't topple when the wind blew.
Yep.
And so I've always found that a fascinating analogy.
Our team, when they were talking through this topic, one of the thoughts that they came up with was comparing this idea of resilience with a potential antonym of complacency. And when we were talking through that, you said, I don't know if complacency is the best antonym. I don't know if it's the best opposite. What would you say is the best opposite for resilience?
Yeah, it's fragility. Mm-hmm. I mean, complacency is an issue, but to be complacent means that you're unmotivated and usually immovable, right? So if you're unmotivated and immovable, the chances that you'll face a trial are pretty minimalistic. So the antonym that I see to resilience is fragility, and it is the continual and evidenced practice of just kind of falling apart when things get hard, and we see it in sport, we see it in government, we see it in business, we see it in relationships. That's why the divorce rate is what it is, right? Because things get hard and people fall apart rather than getting together to do the work of repairing that relationship. And so I really kind of see a culture of fragility. And this is not a political statement. I don't ride the donkey or the elephant. I roll with the lamb. Okay? You like that?
I like that.
Pastor joke of the day. But at the end of the day, there is a culture of fragility that started with the generation born to the boomers, when we first started getting ribbons for everything. That started with us, right? We're late Gen Xers. And I'll never forget, I was a kid. I was a running back, and we lost the game. And we still got trophies and went out for pizza. And I asked my dad, why did we get a trophy? And he said, I was asking myself the same thing. That's right. That's right, yeah. That's the kind of dad I had. Yeah. But truly, I'm like, why did we get a trophy for losing? There are no participation awards in life.
Yeah.
And for that reason, it has ingrained a certain level of fragility into our host culture ethos. And when things get hard, people fall apart.
Yeah. And so I would ask you this, the truth is this podcast, this episode is probably going to go a little bit longer than some of the others, probably because it's something near and dear to both mine and your heart, and so that's okay. People can listen to it on the way to work and on the way home. But so say we've got a listener right now.
Yeah.
We've talked about resilience. We've talked about some ways that you can build resilience with your kids. What if somebody's right in the middle of something, like right now, that's difficult, and they would say, man, what am I supposed to do right now to not want to give up? What am I supposed to do to have the energy, to have the fight, to be able to push through, and as we said earlier, to even come through better on the other side? What do I need to do?
Yeah, number one, remind yourself of the why.
That's good.
Why are you in this? For me, my why that kept me in the church was I want to see people's lives fundamentally changed by the good news of the gospel. I believe it. And I believe when people encounter Jesus, their life is changed forever. That's my why. And if I can hold on to that why, then it will help to pull me through. The second thing I would say is a period of recalibration, right? You need to step back and ask the question, how did I get here? How did I get here? And do I see some steps toward daylight, right? The third thing I would say is getting the wisdom or advice of a trusted mentor or another leader. What would you do in this situation? Here's what I'm facing. Everything in me tells me I want to give up, but I'm fighting to move forward. Have you seen this before, and how did you handle it? What did you do? The fourth thing I would say is, particularly for you Christians out there, and it really should be the first thing, is to pray. Ask the Lord to give you strength that you don't have, and He will. The Bible literally says He will supply every need, right? So ask Him I had to do that, dude. Listen, there were days in 2019 where I just laid on the floor in my office, face down, crying out to the Lord, saying, please end this. Get me out of here or get them out of here, but please end this. I had to cry out to the Lord. And every time, not only would He give me renewed strength, right? Doesn't the psalmist tell us that He'll renew our strength like the eagles, right? Even the youths grow tired and faint, but those that wait on the Lord, He will renew their strength. Every time I would come out of one of those seasons of prayer, not only would I have renewed strength, but I'd have new ideas, new focus, new clarity, to the point where, in the middle of this conflict, we're still trying to just have church.
Yeah.
And one of these guys grabs me in between services, and he's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I said, "Yeah, no." And he's like, "What do you mean, no?" I said, "My focus is them. They're my priority. The people in that room. You are not my priority today. You can schedule a meeting like everybody else," right? Where in the preceding weeks, I was trying to have every meeting I could because I was trying to do damage control and put out all the fires. So that was a strength that came out of prayer, and then the last thing I would say, and I really do believe in this, is every leader needs a counselor and a coach. You need a counselor to help you process your emotions and your traumas, and your own blind spots and issues. And you need a coach to give you perspective on your leadership decisions and challenges. Yeah. If you're stuck right now, if you'll do those 5 things, I really do believe you'll not only get unstuck, but you will have energy to move forward in whatever you're facing right now.
And one thing I think that's common through all of those is you wouldn't do this if you didn't believe that there was something better on the other side.
And that's the why.
That's the why. It goes right back to the beginning. And you mentioned scripture earlier, but James says we consider it joy when we face trials because we know there's something in us that's being developed. There is a purpose for the pain. There's a reason why we're going through it. If we can believe that, we can grab hold of it. That's going to give us some gas to be able to work through these things. Lance, wrapping up, where can we find your book? Where can we find The Resilience Factor?
The Resilience Factor. You can find it anywhere books are sold. Amazon.com is a great place, but also Barnes & Noble and any other bookstore. And I will ask that if you get it, and if you like it, which you will, because it is really good, please leave us a review on Amazon. That helps us with the algorithm, because algorithms run our lives now.
They do. Greatly appreciate your time being here with us. As always, one of these days, maybe we'll get to live life in the same city. Who knows? We'll see how that works out. I'll just go ahead and say it here.
We've been asking the Lord.
People here online. So grateful to spend time with you talking about resilience. Thank you for modeling that for us. Thank you for investing in that for all of our listeners. Love spending time with you. Thank you all for tuning in this week. If this is valuable, if you know somebody that in your life is going through a difficult time, please share this episode with them. Point them to the Resilience Factor. Great resource. Love you guys. Looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.